My new book, Pillars for Life, A Guide to Spiritual Ethics and Practice, is now out and available for you to read and purchase. You can check out our website, willowhealing.org, to find a link, or you can find it on Amazon. We look forward to getting your feedback, and if you love it, please leave a review and share with your friends. Now it's time for the show. Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Hey everyone, it's Catherine from Willow Healing, and I'm here today with beautiful Fabiola Baughman. She's a shamanic practitioner and wayshower of Peruvian Indigenous Wisdom. Following her inner guidance, she left her career as a scientist and professor to reconnect with her ancestral roots in Peru. Instructed by the Apus, she created the award-winning documentary Journey to the Heart of the Andes to share Andean wisdom with Pachamama's messages. Recognized for her clairvoyant and shamanic abilities, Fabiola offers healing through private sessions, workshops, spiritual journeys, and group initiations, helping others access their true power and inner peace. She holds multiple certifications in energy medicine, clairvoyance, sound healing, and yoga. You can learn more about her at her website, which we'll talk about more at the end, or you can check out her documentary on kenema.com, and we'll make sure all those details are in there. But for now, a big welcome to the show, Fabiola.
Thank you so much. It's good to see you.
So I have so much to unpack with that. So I guess, where did your shamanic journey start? Were you always feeling pulled to work with like the energies of the world, or was it just something that came about later?
I think that mysticism was always a part of my life since I was a little child. In fact, I was having some memories a few days ago when I remember being a child and seeing colors around people all the time. And it was like, and I was always questioning, was something wrong with my eyes? But eventually, it kind of faded. And there was a moment when I was about 12 years old where that spiritual awareness or that sense of feeling energy or seeing energy kind of closed down. And I started kind of focusing on what am I going to do with my life, right? And I love nature. So the way that I found to relate to nature was through science. And I became a biologist. I always loved animals. I always loved nature. And I enjoyed very much exploring the mountains while I was in college and really having that connection and that solitude of nature, being in high altitude and just feeling at peace with the Apus, the spirits of the mountains, which I didn't know at the time, but I felt them. So I immigrated to the United States later on, and I realized that I wasn't happy in the science field for whatever reason. I come to understand now that it was a very, very much a patriarchal system, which is not in sync with the energy of Pachamama. So I didn't know that at the time. So I decided to just stay home, raise my kids. I was having some health issues. And that was the door that opened up to return to spirituality. And I became a shaman, I want to say, in the year 2019. Because after I started learning about meditation and clairvoyance, I got invited back to my land, to Peru, by a woman that had similar training that I have. And but she was leading spiritual journeys to Peru. And I said, well, sure, I'll go. I've never been on a spiritual journey in Peru, but I'm curious. So when I returned to Peru and I approached it from a different perspective, it was just like a portal opened, and I was able to communicate with the spirits of the land. And that started my journey of becoming initiated and becoming a shaman.
That is so beautiful. I just saw that happening when you were saying it, and how cool is that? Like, just to go back to where, your ancestral roots were, and then to have that beautiful connection with the land, and to be really initiated almost by having that portal open for you. It's such a beautiful experience. And so as you started to explore that more, did you find that's where your psychic gifts started to come into play, and all the beautiful things that Mother Earth has gifted you, Pachamama?
I think it was my life had to go take a full circle. like going away from that, becoming a scientist, kind of going into the left side of my brain, and then returning to the right side. I think science definitely takes a very important role in my life and the way I teach people. But I always bring it back to what does it truly mean when you're trying to connect with Pachamama, right? And what was your question again?
Oh, I was saying, when did your extra gifts start to come into play, like the
Okay.
clairvoyance and
Yeah, so I started when I when I decided to stay home. Oops, moment. When I decided to stay home, I went into meditation, and that led me into clairvoyance.
yeah,
So meditation, I started learning about the world of energy, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then I come to realize that I can actually read people, and I can actually learn about this, and I can have my own answers. It's like, yeah, get me started, right? Because I've always been about the truth, right?
yes,
I always wanted to know the truth, the real truth, not the truth that people want me to believe or society wants me to believe. So that led me into from meditation to clairvoyance, and then within a couple of years, I have developed those tools. And then when I returned to Peru, I was primed to
yeah.
receive those messages. I just didn't know it.
Yeah, and I love how spirit sets you up for success, right? So if you stay in tune and go through all the, let's just say, hurdles that you get thrown in your way, but there's always a reason why those hurdles get put there and why they open up to your path. And I often think too that, if I knew what I knew now and I learned it when I first started my spiritual journey, I would have just laughed in my person's face. You have to be open and ready to receive the information, and you have to build up, you go through those different levels to actually get to where you need to go.
Absolutely. I think if I was, my daughter is 22 now. When I was 22, I had just graduated from college. I was 100% a scientist. I was going for my master's degree. I was focused, and I was just factual. I would have, if you would have told me I was going to be a shaman, I would have laughed on your face. So it's like, what are you talking about, right?
So,
And now I'm 54, and I'm like, wow, I'm just like, yeah, this was definitely my path, and thank God you didn't tell me about it, because I would have never believed it.
yeah,
So I had to live through it. So to become the shaman that I am now.
100%. I'm laughing too because my journey's been very similar to that. Whereas, like, if you would have told me at the start of my journey, yeah, you're going to sell your business and go live this spiritual life, I'd be like, what? So it's very interesting coming from like this corporate, where you have to be, like you said, in your left brain, be like very patriarchal, very logical, and then coming back to your wisdom and trusting your intuition and what comes through, from Pachamama as well as what comes through from spirit. It is amazing when you just open to accept that, but you have to be open and you have to be ready.
Absolutely. And I think part of my training was that as a scientist, you have to be very organized. You have to write a thesis, a research project. You need to be very organized, have your ducks in a row, and work through the steps. And that's something that helped me a lot with the documentary, which that's another story too.
Yes.
Once the mountains opened up that door, then they came out with the idea of the documentary.
I love that. Okay, so you were in the mountains, and all of a sudden it's time to film us. Is that how it kind of went about?
Wait, no. There was a lot in between. So in 2018, that's when I went on this journey. I received a message from Pachacutec, who's one of the Incas, one of the most powerful and non-Incas of the Inca Empire, and he showed up in one of my visions, and he told me that we were mistreating Pachamama, we were mistreating Mother Earth. And I took it like a responsibility, like, well, you're putting this on me and I'm nobody. And he told me to be a catalyst for change. So that really stayed with me. And during that journey, I started receiving the initiations, right? Several initiations. And I continued to have it throughout the rest of the year, 2018, 2019. And then after I received the initiations, the spirits of the mountains and the lineages would come and wake me up in the middle of the night. And they would tell me in my dreams, come to the mountains, because you have to feel these initiations in the mountains. And that's when I truly started having this relationship with them. A few years later, because that was in 2019, a few years later, once they felt that my commitment with them, my relationship with them, they became my family, then they basically initiated me one more time, hit me right on the side of the head. It felt like lightning. It wasn't lightning, but it felt like something really hard hit me on the head. and they say, hey, what about if you start this project, film a documentary in the Andes? Now, with all this content that I have made, and I have been filming anyway with my phone just for fun, and to share on Facebook with my friends and whatnot, and I was surprised because I was not a filmmaker, and that took me on a whole nother journey, and they told me about trusting that this was my path, but it was a choice, right? And my husband was very supportive, partner in this venture, and I would have never done it if he wasn't on board. If he wasn't on board, but from the very first second, I said, "Hey, they're asking me to film this documentary. What do you think?" He was, "Let's do it," and that really blew my mind. So I started on this journey. I didn't know how I was gonna fund it. I didn't know how I was gonna film it. But the funds were there. I just didn't know it. I just needed to have the courage to use them. So, to use my own money and say, okay, month at a time, one step at a time, one scene at a time, one journey at a time. And I have a fantastic crew, young graduate kids that knew about filming and screenwriting. And we went and with a loose script, and we along the way, we started filming. And some of the people that we interviewed, we didn't contact them until the day before. We just, okay, what if we interview this person? What if we go here? What if we go there? It was kind of like a flower that was opening up. And the wisdom, the deep wisdom that came from the mouths of these people was incredible. How the humbleness of the people of the Andes, because they work with the dirt. Working with the dirt makes you humble, makes you grounded. And how beautiful this connection is with the earth. It makes you an earthling, really. And being this, having this relationship and understanding what's truly important in life. That's what they were talking about. And they were remembering as they work with the earth, either by making pottery or planting potatoes or making despachos, offerings to the land, or running a hotel and doing ceremony. All of these lessons taught them about this wonderful wisdom and this relationship that we are losing as a humanity and that we need to get back to. And that really taught me that there was such a precious heritage that we need to get back to, that we are born in the places that we're born for a reason, and we're all indigenous from somewhere, but ultimately we're indigenous from the earth, and we need to get back to it. And when we understand that, when we start integrating the elements, start connecting with the mountains and the water and the fire and all of that, and the air, then we understand who we are. And we understand that we are the earth, not that we live on the earth, that we are the earth. And when we heal ourselves, we heal the earth. That was the main message.
Which is, I just had goosebumps the whole time you were saying that, Fabiola, because it's so true. Like, we are nature. We come from nature. We are one with nature. And I think I saw this thing a few weeks ago pop up as a meme saying that, it took centuries and generations to build our connection with the land, and it took 2 generations to disconnect us. It was like really powerful. And a big thing that I'm really passionate about is connecting kids back to the land and connecting ourselves back to the land, because if we can teach our children how to honor and respect and communicate with the wisdom that Pachamama has to share, then, we're creating generations that will come back and actually care. And once you know that you're connected to the earth in that way, you don't want to hurt it anymore, because you realize you're actually hurting yourself.
Exactly. And it's so important that when you say the word respect, respect, love, harmony, those are the words of the Apus. We need to get back to that. Respect, love, harmony with the earth. Because when you are respectful, and that's, sometimes we confuse that by being respectful, we lose freedom. And that has nothing to do with it. Being respectful has to do with honoring the life within you, the life within the other being, whether it's a rock, a plant, an animal, and honoring that and respecting that and listening to that. So that is so important. And even rocks, especially in Cusco and in the Andes, when the rocks are so huge and they actually talk to you, so it's incredible when you hear that power and that presence of nature. And respect is fundamental to get going back to nature.
Yeah, where I live currently. We're surrounded by eucalyptus gums, but also a lot of big sandstone mountains and old sandstone. And we have this big rock in front of our house, which I call Harvey, and he's very much a protective energy. But our neighbor was building on top of this sandstone mountain, and I was walking down like underneath it, and the mountain just was like, if he doesn't honor us soon, there will be tragedy. And I'm like, I barely know this guy. How am I meant to tell him that? So I went up there because they were actually drilling into the sandstone, and because they hadn't honored it and respected it and, asked for that permission. I said, look, this is going to sound really weird, but they want you to create like an honoring or a tribute, whether you just get some rocks and put it in a nice way and just say, thank you for letting me build here. I want to protect you, or whatever it is. And he was so chill about it. Like, he was like, I like barely know him. And he's like, yeah, cool, I can do that. I'll do that. Like, it was just so open. And I'm like, okay, I did not plan for it to go this way in my head. So, thank you.
Surprised you that he was open to it. So wonderful, because that would have prevented a tragedy, right?
Exactly. So, and, even, I know humans are progressing in things, but there's just this disconnection when you're building into land. You need to talk to it and honor it. Like, we had mostly like a smooth build, and people were like, oh, like, because we peered into the land, and I kept saying, like, we're going to do this, but we're going to protect you, and that was always my deal with the land. We're going to protect you. We didn't have any issue. We had other issues like government issues, but we didn't have issues in terms of like the land not welcoming us and that sort of thing. And then when my contract ended, so I worked a lot with the ley lines, because we had a really broken ley line, and the grandfather tree was stuck because he got struck by lightning and his energy was stuck there. Anyway, so I was working with that and everything. But once I'd done that, I knew that kind of my contract with the land was finished, and that's why I'd come here, and that's why I'd worked with it. And now it's like, okay, now you need to sell your house. So we're just waiting to see what happens with that. And everyone's like, has it sold yet? I'm like, no, I'm just trusting that, maybe where I'm meant to go and work with the land isn't ready yet. But when you listen to the land, it will just tell you where to go. It'll just pull you where you need to be too.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. My husband and I are building a home right now. And so I was meeting with a landscaper, and the landscaper showed me this plan, and I was just like, you didn't hear me what I was telling you. And then I said, okay, let's put the brakes on this project for now. And then I just said, okay, it took me a month to just kind of get over, like, okay, you were listening part. And then I said, I'm just going to walk the land, and I'm going to ask what needs to go in every direction, really, around the house. And it was just amazing how the land was telling me, I need a kind of like a green area, and then I need fire in this area, and I need water in this area, and probably, maybe a creek would be nice, and right here will be your Pachamama garden where you're going to grow your crops. And right here, if you want to have a greenhouse, this is where you're going to put it. And stop right here, because that hasn't developed yet. That's as far as you're going to go. And you can do this here. And, so he was showing me what she was okay with. And I call her she because Pachamama, and honoring that. And I was so excited that my landscaper loved the idea of listening to the earth. And I said, when you bring rocks here, let's make sure we ask permission. And the rocks want to come with us. Yeah. Because, again, somebody can get hurt. And it happens because, they get resentful. They get upset because we're not honoring, we're not respecting their wishes. And we're not working with harmony. So many cases here when freeways are built, when homes are built, people get hurt because we forgot that we have to live in harmony and reciprocity. And if we could learn from that and honor that, so many things can be prevented.
Yeah, and it's funny you brought that up about people getting hurt and weird things happening, because my last house that I built, I didn't know any of this because, I was young, I wasn't in my spiritual journey. And when we tried to sell it, actually we had a landscaper come in, and he was doing landscaping for the pool. And I joked with him. I said, oh, yeah, we always say this house is cursed, because we had all these weird stuff happen all the time. And sure enough, he was digging and went through a pipe, and then we had water everywhere. And he goes, and then all this other stuff happened. He goes, I think you're right. This house is cursed. And I'm like, clearly there's something not right there. And when we were trying to sell the house, it took so long. And it was my naturopath who was quite spiritual. He said, you need to go out the back and put some rocks or something there. He goes, they're not happy. So I went and did that. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just blindly following, right? I was like, okay, I'm trusting there's something here. And then I went and sat out the front, and I just saw to put, like I just had this vision of putting rocks under the sign, and there was like an electrical box, so the land had been disturbed because they put electricity through it, so it needed to be grounded. So I'm like, okay, this is weird, but I'm going to put rocks around it. And then the next day someone drove past the sign and rang up, and they ended up being the one buying our house because I'd released the energy. But like you said, especially rocks, people discount rocks and think they're inanimate objects, which they're not. They carry so much energy, right? And so much history and so much, I call it like a hard energy. I don't know about you.
Yeah, for sure. Right, all that harmony, that love energy, and it's so important also to program these stones and program this. Like actually yesterday, I just put a grid in one of our properties that we're going to sell because we are running into the same problem. That this property feels, it's almost like the energy is tired.
Yeah.
First of all, because somebody died there, or because there was some tragedy there, or somebody lost that home before we bought it, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of that heavy energy. So the property is like, needs to be rebalanced. So honoring that, bringing crystals into the property and instructing the crystals that, help me bring this love back into this property, and bring harmony back into this property. A lot of my work sometimes goes in the direction of let's reestablish the energy of properties. Sometimes people can't find a renter, they can't find a buyer in the property, and when I start connecting with the property tells me I'm upset because I was mistreated. I was mistreated. My yard looks like crap. The land tells me that I need some TLC, tender loving care. And next time, please make sure that you screen the renters properly because they didn't treat me right. So all of that is so, so important. And everything in the Andean cosmovision, everything is alive. And we understand that our life can be so much more harmonious.
Yeah, exactly. And where we live at the moment, we leave everything. We just let it do what it needs to do, and if it wants to be cut back, we kind of listen for that. But people would drive past and go, oh, it's unkempt or anything like that. But it's like, no, actually, we have so many insects and crickets and grasshoppers because the grass, like the native grass, is really long. And then, all the butterflies are coming in and the bees, and all of a sudden they have somewhere to be, which is what we always wanted because we wanted to really honor the land and let the land do what it needed to do. And it's interesting when you sit back and allow your garden to grow how it wants to, because these plants will grow that you've never planted and then they're perfect for you, right? So I had this beautiful example of this agrimony popped up and I didn't know what it was, and I'm like, what's that? And I was like studying herbalism at the time, and I opened the book and I was like, oh my gosh, this is agrimony. It was like the picture was right there, right? I was like, thank you, Spirit. And it was what I needed. I needed it because it was good for liver. So then I dried out the leaves and I ended up turning it into a tea so then I could drink it to help my liver. But we don't allow, like, we have this idea of these perfect manicured lawns and everything like that, and we don't allow nature to actually be nature and allow that beauty of what Pachamama can actually gift us when you let it come through.
Right. It's so important. And there's a creek on the side of the house that we're building, and every summer it gets so lush and beautiful, and the marmots are running around, and squirrels, and who knows what else comes at night, right? So I'm looking forward to that. But the problem is that the HOA comes and just cuts all the plant, the vegetation down. It just breaks my heart. But I guess they're trying to keep, I don't know what they're trying to do, probably keep rodents down, or I really don't know. But it's just such, it makes me very sad when they do that, because the creek is so beautiful, and it's just beautiful to see nature flourishing. But I don't know, it's just, I guess, to prevent fires too. So,
yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
I live in an area where we are prone to fires.
Same.
Yeah.
And I actually had to have a fight with the they're called like the rural fire service, because they came around and they wanted to backburn our property, and the land was actually screaming at me, do not let them burn this land. Like, it was screaming. And I was like, no, we're not giving permission. And they're like, oh, yeah. And they were trying to change my mind. I said, no, we're not giving permission. And we actually had to fight them on it. And then when we pushed and actually learned about the procedures and how they were doing it, I fully understood why the land was saying, do not let them burn me. And then the whole full circle with that was they came back to ask permission to use this driveway access we have. And they said, oh, it's probably good that you're not actually burning your land, because then the animals will all have somewhere to go for refuge. And I was like, wow. Yeah.
Right? Oh my gosh, I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh my god, that makes full sense. Thank you. I understand now why they were so adamant that we protected it and really fought with you guys over it. And I don't regret my decision at all, So, and it was so much a fear campaign too. And I was like, nope, I'm trusting what the land wants. So I'm going to honor that and let that come through. So, yeah.
I think, what I'm hearing is it's so important that scientists and intuitives work together. The left and the right brain. It's all about balance, right? Because if scientists, like forestry people, go and say, we got to do this because this is to preserve land. But if we don't have a way to listen to the land and the reasons why they don't want to be touched or doesn't want to be touched, we don't have that balance.
Yeah.
Nature, I remember once flying back from California, and I went through the Caldor fire. The Caldor fire was a huge fire in California. And I remember asking the angel, show me what side of the plane I need to see at, because I want to see it. And as I was flying through the fire, that smoke was huge. I was asking the angels, why is this happening? And they were telling me, this is a reflection of what's happening in human hearts. This is the sorrow and the pain that human beings are going through, and the earth is just a mirror. It's showing us that, but it naturally does that. So it is something natural. It's something that we need to live with, and something that we need to prevent, but at the same time it has to be in a balanced way, in a harmonious way. And sometimes we just go with the facts too much without really listening.
Yeah.
And really, the true wisdom, it's both. It's facts and listening and understanding about the flow of things, about the harmony of things. And we can't measure that with science.
No. Yeah, they're trying, but not yet.
Not yet. Maybe someday. Maybe someday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I know you have a unique way of working with your clients. So what does that look like when you encourage them on their spiritual journeys and they come and work with you?
Oh, I can work with my clients in so many different levels. Particularly, I work mostly with women, but I also work with men. And it has to do a lot, it can be any way from healing ancestral wounds, or rebalancing their own energy within themselves, masculine and feminine, or also helping them reshape their relationships. Because something that I've seen lately is that there's a lot of women that are quite competent in their lives, and then for whatever reason, because they had to learn it really early on. I remember when I was a kid, and my mom would send me, a mile away and go shop and barter with the in the market. That was something that kids did back then. And I learned to be very independent and very self-sufficient early on. But that, because I was competent, when my kids came around, it's like, okay, you do this, you do that, and then they always had to check with me about doing things, and I didn't realize that I was hurting them by doing that. So I see a lot of women that have that problem, that they're very competent. They had a challenge when they were growing up, so they learned to be very competent, very independent, and then they try to help their children, and they don't let them suffer. They don't let them go through climb their own mountain or walk their own path. And then they say, well, why are they always depending on me? And we have to rearrange or kind of rethink that relationship. Okay, how are you giving your energy, and how are you not empowering this person? That's very common. Again, ancestral wounds with men. Yeah.
Guilty.
Yeah. We come here to learn, right? Ancestral wounds with men running in lineages. I see that a lot. And also, what I'm very passionate about is just training earth keepers. Training earth keepers, just giving them the initiations that I received. I'm starting to take people to Peru now. But before I take them on the journey, I give them the initiation, so when they can get to Peru, they can have a conversation one-on-one with the mountains, with Pachamama, and become the earth keeper they're meant to be, whichever way it is. Not what I think they should be, but whatever Pachamama, whatever the Apus want to work with them. So there are many ways of being an earth keeper. So I just think it's a very unique path. Every person is different, and we need to walk away from structured way of thinking. It's about that harmony and that flow, and the earth keeper is the one that listens to the earth, right? So that's my job, to train the earth keepers as well.
Yeah, which is so beautiful and so needed, because as people start to awaken to what's going on with them, I know a lot of people are like, well, what can we actually do to help the earth? Because it can be very doom and gloom when you listen to the mainstream media and everything that we get, right? It's like, well, how about you actually start providing some possible solutions? Like, you don't hear about the amazing people that invent those barges that go in the rivers and collect all the plastic and they can pull it out now. You don't hear about how people have created systems that actually break down all forms of rubbish, including things that normally, like asbestos and things like that, to their molecular compounds. You don't hear about that. There's so many things that we don't hear about from that level, let alone, hey, this is a way that you can actually be an earth keeper and help protect it in your own capacity, in your own energy, in your own vibration. And this is ways that you can honor and respect Pachamama.
Absolutely, and there's so much of that. There are so many scientists. There's one in Peru that is working cleaning the lakes, and so many people around the world that have developed this technology or technique to just do it in a natural way, and if we can all listen to each other. But I think the fundamental thing is to listen to the earth, and that's what we need to get back to, because if we don't really understand what the earth is trying to say, and that we don't hear what the earth is trying to heal, we won't be able to help the earth, and we can come up with 1,000 different ways of, you need this and that, but no, we really don't until we start listening.
Exactly. And I love how you said that too, that it's when we listen that you'll get the guidance, and that comes from all aspects, right? When you listen to your inner wisdom, when you listen to Pachamama, when you listen to spirit, you will get the guidance that you need. And like you said about the trust when you were making your documentary, right? Like, you're just like, yeah, I understand what you're going through. So it's just like, okay, I'm doing this. I have no idea. I'm putting it all on the line, but I'm trusting that you're going to make sure it's all okay. And now you have this beautiful documentary to share with the world. So do you want to share a little bit about how people can find that?
Yes, the documentary is called Journey to the Heart of the Andes, and actually received several awards, which I was blown away. And
of course.
I am so happy that happened. I mean, I'm still like, we have one more festival to participate in, actually here in Reno, in the city that I live, so who knows which direction it's going to go. But we got 7 different recognitions for different festivals around the United States and in Canada. And it's the story basically of not only me returning to my land and becoming this earth keeper, I guess, but also to share the wisdom of the people of the Andes. And in the process, I went through a healing journey, and it was very interesting. You have to watch the whole thing, because at the end there's a surprise of how that healing happened that I wasn't expecting. And and it was a beautiful, beautiful journey. And when you're filming in the Andes, the mountains are just so impressive. And so you can find it on my website, which is Fabiola, Fabiola Baughman, BAUGHMAN.com. Also, you can go to kinema.com with a K. And again, it's Journey to the Heart of the Andes, and it's available for rent. And I'm actually going to start writing a book, and the release date is going to be in the fall. And it's also going to be related to this journey, how, the idea came to be, how the Apus kind of prepped me, and all the stories I wasn't able to say in an hour and 44 minutes. because there were so many stories, so many things that happened, and so many frustrations, and so many, like, I wish if I could go back in time and say, have fun with this, have fun with this, because you're fully supported. So if I ever make another documentary or another filming project, believe me, I'm gonna have fun with this, because I know it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, which I love that. But that's the gift of hindsight sometimes, right? Like you can go, now I can see it was all going to be okay, but I didn't know at the time.
Gosh, and I'm an immigrant, like the I think the hardest part for me to immigrate was to get on the plane.
Yeah.
And the hardest part for me to film the documentary was to say, yes, I'm going to do it. To make the decision, yes, I'm going to jump in the pool. I don't know if there's water, but I'll find out.
Exactly.
Courage is not the absence of fear, for sure. It's just that even though you're afraid, you're going to do it anyway.
Exactly. And I asked the guests that come on the show, Fabiola, if there was something they could heal or change in the world, what would it be?
Something that I could heal and change in the world?
Yeah.
What I would love to change is that people stop worrying so much about survival. They get out of survival and enjoy every moment and really tune into the love that they have with their family and the love that they are surrounded by and the abundance that the earth provides for them. Because the earth is just such a wonderful, powerful mother, that provides for us. And we just don't recognize that because we just have this idea of how things need to be. But it's so simple, really. And understanding that getting out of survival mode, that's what I would like to change. And be in that joyful state and remembering the joy that your inner child has for you.
That's so beautiful. And I'll make sure as well, for anyone listening, we'll make sure to put all of Fabiola's details in the show notes so that they can find you if they want to work with you, or they can check out your documentary, or however way they want to connect with you. I'll make sure that's all in there for you. So thank you so much for your time, Fabiola. And I love your journey, and I love how, thank you for being an earth keeper and for training other earth keepers as well, because it's so needed in this world.
Thank you, Catherine. I really appreciate you having me on your show. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you are taking the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.